Whether you play on PC and already have access to the Necrom chapter, or you're on console and you're getting ready for the release on June 20th, I know many of you are still trying to wrap your head around what's new and what is changing in the Elder Scrolls Online. So this video will be focused on some of the key features coming with Update 38, as well as some of the important changes you won't want to overlook when it comes to setting up your characters. Real quick, big thanks to Bethesda for sponsoring this video. If you do still need a copy of Necrom, I have a link at the top of the description that will take you directly to the online store. And while this video is sponsored, the opinions within it are my own, and this will always be the case on my channel going forward with any sponsorships. So I think most people will probably consider the new class, the Arcanist, to be the biggest feature of the chapter. For me personally, that's definitely what I'm most hyped about. The class looks amazing, it's very unique in its design and playstyle. I've been having a ton of fun on it since the PC release. I do have a DPS guide already posted for the Arcanist going over a few different setups, including a 1-bar build that can get over 100k DPS. So make sure to check that one out if you are looking for some ideas on how to set up your Arcanist. Next up, we have 2 overland zones where the story will take place. First is the Telvanni Peninsula. This is a little southeast of Vardenfell and home to the city of Necrom. You'll notice some familiar vibes to the Morrowind expansion here, but with some unique features that I'll go over in just a bit. We also have the Daedric realm of Apocrypha, which some of you might remember from Skyrim. This has quickly become one of my favorite zones in the game. I don't want to spoil too much for you because exploring and seeing this all for the first time has been one of my favorite things to do since the release, but there is quite a lot of variety in the look and the layout. It's been pretty refreshing to have something so different from what we're used to seeing. Now within these zones, we have a lot of your typical features, the 6 world bosses, 6 delves, 2 public dungeons, but there is also a new world event that is different from any we've seen before. It's called Bastion Nimic. You have to open this up through a daily quest, but it is a separate instance you'll go to, and you can do it solo or with a group of up to 4 players. It feels kind of like a really big dungeon. The inside of it is just massive, and there's a lot of freedom to choose your own direction and explore. The enemies are not too difficult, not like Vet DLC dungeon level, but definitely a significant step up from the normal overland content. So for those wanting to solo it, many would probably find it to be a decent challenge. There are also a few puzzles to solve and a few bosses to encounter, so I'm really glad they switched things up with this world event. It's just refreshing to have something different that we haven't seen before instead of your typical dark anchor type of events that they usually do. But I won't spoil anything else. I recommend you just get in there and check it out for yourself. Next up, as is tradition now with the new chapters, we have a couple of new companions, a Xander, a Redguard Arcanist, and Sharp as Knight, an Argonian Warden. This makes 6 total companions that you can pick up now. There's also a new 12-person trial called Sanity's Edge. I've been having a lot of fun working on the veteran hard mode difficulty in there this past week. Heads up, the last boss is pretty chaotic, but you don't have to do the hard modes. There's also the standard veteran and the normal modes, so plenty of options depending on what level of content that you're comfortable with. If you are looking for a guide, Nalandia has written an excellent one that I have linked on my website, and it's also hosted on the ESO website if you prefer that format to the Google Docs version. Next up, coming with the new chapter is a bunch of new gear to pick up. This will include 3 new craftable sets, 3 overland sets, 4 sets from the new trial, and 3 new mythic items that you can dig up with the antiquity system. Now, I won't do a deep dive into all of these sets today. I actually did recently put out a video covering all of my favorite gear sets in ESO, and that does include some of these new options that we have here with Necrom. So make sure to check that video out for a full rundown of what I consider to be the top DPS sets. But I will go ahead and mention just a few personal highlights here. For the craftable options, Shattered Fate and Telvanni Efficiency both seem pretty cool. Shattered is just a super easy option to set up with really nice stats throughout, and Telvanni Efficiency is our first gear set that actually buffs our companions, so I think that's a pretty cool, unique type of set to put together. Out of the overland sets, my favorite is Kamana Tong. This gives weapon and spell damage based on monster kill XP, so for those that are doing some grinding in some really high XP areas, this could be a ton of extra damage on that 5-piece bonus. From the trial, I really like the set Onsul's Torment. This one is a flat 7% damage done to monsters, and that doubles for 10 seconds if you get an interrupt. So even without the secondary condition, the base bonus there is very nice. It's one of my favorite options to use on the Arcanist right now as well. And then finally, from the new mythics, my favorite is Velothi Urmage's Amulet. This essentially deletes your light and heavy attack damage, but adds in a flat 15% damage done bonus to monsters, as well as a couple of other nice stats. This works really well on the Arcanist, and it's also great on any class for AoE heavy encounters, or if you just aren't super comfortable weaving light attacks between each skill cast and you never really liked messing with that, this is a good option for you there as well. We're also getting a ton of collectibles in the new chapter. Definitely feels like a bit more than they normally include. I won't go through all of these, but for the first time we have a new mount that you can get by earning an achievement for the main story quest in Necrom. So I think this is definitely a step in the right direction as far as rewards go. I would still like to see a bit more packed into the new trial. There is a mount you can earn there as well, which is really cool, don't get me wrong, but this is locked behind the hardest level of achievement in the game, and the reward structure progressing up to that point is a bit lacking in my opinion. And this is true of the older trials as well. I'd love to see some more stuff to incentivize replaying the content, but hopefully what they're doing with the Overland mount is a sign of good things to come. On top of the collectibles, we also have a new deck for the Tales of Tribute card game and a couple of new homes to purchase. One of those is the inn room that you can grab right away, and the other is a home that you need the Necrom Grand Adventurer achievement before you can purchase, and that one goes for 1.3 million gold. Then there are also a ton of new furnishings, achievements, and new titles. For the base game, the main new feature here is that you can now favorite collectibles from your menu. Those that have played for a while probably have quite a lot of stuff in there by now, so it's pretty nice to be able to easily swap between your favorites. And this also includes your mounts, and a cool thing with this is the new random mount feature. When you mount up, you can set it to just pick a mount at random from your collection, or you can set it to pick a random favorited mount if you want to narrow that pool down a bit. Alright, let's cover some of the key changes that will affect combat. This won't be every single change listed in the patch notes. Definitely recommend checking those out on the forums if you want to deep dive there. But for this, I'll go through some of the key highlights. So melee abilities with a range of 5 meters have been increased back to 7 meters. This is such a great change in my opinion. Now all classes are able to hit from 7 meters with melee the way that only Dragoknights could previously. Empower, this is a buff that you get for your heavy attack damage. They reduced this from 80% down to 70%. Heavy attack builds are definitely still very viable. This isn't going to make a huge difference. I also recently did a deep dive into that if you want to check out the specifics there. For Dragoknights, Burning Talons was extended to 5 seconds, up from 4 seconds, but the damage over time from it was nerfed by 27%. It's still a really great skill for DKs, and now you won't have to cast it quite as often as you did before. For Necromancers, they got a buff to their main spammable Flame Skull. The amplified third cast of this now increases the damage of it by 50% instead of 20%. So this won't be game changing, but it is a nice little buff for Necros nonetheless. And then for Nightblades, their ultimate ability Deathstroke had its duration increased by 33%, going up to 8 seconds instead of 6 seconds. This is going to be super nice for Nightblades as this ult gives you 20% increased damage done to the enemy. And since it's a really cheap ultimate to cast, the extra time is really kind of huge. And then they also changed Concealed Weapon. The 10% damage done bonus from this will last 10 seconds now, but you do have to manually cast the skill to trigger it, whereas you could just passively get it before. I don't love this change. I feel like the damage done bonus works much better passively. Feels kind of awkward to trigger this, especially for AoE situations, but I'm interested to hear what you all think. Let me know in the comments below what you all think about the change to Concealed Weapon. For Sorcerers, Dark Exchange and its morphs, the Heal and Sustain tool, they got some small damage done bonuses added. For the Storm Atronach Ultimate, this was changed to 10 seconds for the Major Berserk instead of 8 seconds, and it can now go up to 12 targets instead of just 6. Really, really nice buff for Sorcerers here, and I do know there are currently some issues with pets taking this buff in the place of players, so I hope that one can be addressed going forward. For Templars, we have a lot of good changes here. Their Focused Charge ability and its morphs got major protection added after you cast it for a 10% damage taken reduction. Purifying Light and Power of the Light now take way less damage to reach their max values. This won't really have an effect on PvE content, but for PvP, this will make it a lot more reliable to get a strong hit from it. And then for Solar Barrage, they added a buff to this one called Sun Sphere. This gives you a 5% damage done bonus to your class abilities. This skill was a bit lacking in what it offered, so I'm really glad that they added this on here. Then the Rune Focus ability, this was changed to now heal you even when you aren't standing in your rune. So the way that it will work is that you get a small heal over time away from the rune, but that will triple whenever you stand inside of it. I think this was a great idea to add a little bit more passive healing, especially for Templar tanks, but it's definitely nice for all roles. And then for Wardens, we don't really have a lot here. There was a small nerf to their Arctic Blast ability. The stun from it now happens at 2 seconds rather than immediately when it's cast. For bow abilities, Acid Spray was given the same treatment as Burning Talons for the DK, so the tooltips on these two will be identical now. 5-second dot with an upfront hit to it. The damage per tick is roughly the same, but with that extended timer, this should be a nice little buff for bow users. For the two-handed abilities, the Major Berserk on Wrecking Blow was reduced down to 3 seconds from 5 seconds. I don't really love this one. I thought the ability was in a pretty good spot at 5 seconds. It looks really good on a trial dummy, but you still saw it used way less in actual content than your more traditional dual wield front bar setups. So I would like to see a little love for two-handers, maybe something like giving this bonus for a short duration to their execute as well to really help finish off fights. That could be pretty awesome. There were also some changes to existing gear sets. So Stormmaster was nerfed a bit with its duration. It's still a very nice heavy attack set, but not quite as reliable on the uptimes as before. They also changed the bonus to only work against PvE enemies rather than against other players. Infallible Mage also received the same PvE only treatment. The monster set Nunatak was also nerfed a bit to not snare as heavily, and it requires 4 hits from it to activate the Major Brittle. Mara's Balm finally got a pretty hefty nerf with the cooldown going to 30 seconds from 15 seconds. And then Plague Break is now a PvP only set. It only works against enemy players instead of any enemy. They also changed the leveling experience with companions a little bit. Now that there are 6 companions, the grind to actually level and build rapport with all of them for a new player would be really daunting. So they have reduced the amount of rapport needed for each of the tiers. They also added in a nice XP boost for their leveling that increases based on your rapport with them. So pretty nice there for those that still need to level up the companions. Won't be quite the grind that it was previously. And that pretty much covers the highlights for the new stuff coming with Necrom and the key changes that you'll need to account for going from update 37 to 38. This is honestly my favorite new chapter for ESO in several years, and I think they've taken a big step in the right direction with this one. The changes are mostly consistent with feedback, aside from a couple of small things that I disagree with, and the new class is just really fun to play. So I'm hyped for what they're doing and would love to see this trend continue going forward. I hope this video helped to summarize everything and get y'all caught up and ready to go for the new chapter. Please feel free to leave a comment below with your thoughts or any questions, or join up in the Discord for daily discussions around the Elder Scrolls Online. Big thanks to my current Patreon supporters and YouTube members. The support helps a ton to keep the website and YouTube channel going. And a special thanks to Nicholas, Simon, Cougar is Bay and the Cougar City Guild, the Order of War Guild, Cantankerous Cat, Shady, Iffy, Blake1816, Mordecai1212, Santanico, Vidridi, Florian, Phoenix, Nolandia, Unemployed, Chryseliana, Cha-Cha, Technical KO, and Cap. Thanks again, and see you later. Bye.